The night should have been a win. Should have felt like crossing a finish line after 20 years of busted seals and emergency shutdowns. Name's Curtis. I'm 56, maintenance superintendent at a bottling plant outside Dayton. That night, our new line, conveyors, sensors, the whole works, ran clean through 3 shifts straight. No jams, no shutdowns. First time since I hired on. The numbers came in at 380% over forecast. People went nuts. Somebody cracked a bottle of dollar store champagne and sprayed it all over the break room TV like we'd just won the Super Bowl. Marketing snapped photos. Sales handed out helium balloons that said "Top Dog" in Comic Sans. Real classy. I stood off to the side, sipping a warm seltzer near the vending machine, letting folks slap backs and yell over each other. Then Trent, the plant manager, with that $10 buzz cut and the smirk he thought made him charming, tapped my shoulder. "Quick thing," he said, real casual. "Your rollout bonus isn't clearing. Policy change. You understand." I didn't nod, didn't blink, just stared at him for a second. "Policy?" He shrugged, already turning, Bluetooth blinking like a bad excuse. "Above my pay grade. Before we continue, tell us in the comments where in the world you're tuning in from." Now, back to the story. I watched him walk off like he just told me we were out of napkins. No big deal. But I'd worked through weekends, climbed into frozen auger pits in February, and carried his weight more times than I could count. And I'm the one who negotiated the service agreement with the vendor after he no-showed his own calendar invite. That agreement? I'd made sure of one thing. Access to the vendor's control platform only worked if a designated, compensated liaison was on payroll. That name? Mine. I didn't yell, didn't make a scene, just took another sip, nodded like I was fine. Inside, I remembered exactly where that clause sat and what it could do if they held back longer than they were allowed. Folks kept asking me for scrap rates and throughput numbers for their slides. I gave them what they needed: cool, clean, on time, no edge. Then I walked back to my office, unlocked my bottom drawer, and pulled out the hard copy of the vendor contract. I didn't need to flip to it, but I did anyway. Appendix C, paragraph 4, B. I'd burned it into my skull. Plain language. If the designated liaison isn't in compensated employment for more than 96 hours, the software license is void. Not revenge. Insurance. I wrote it in after Trent tried farming my rebuild job to his cousin's buddy 2 summers ago. I slid the paper back into the folder marked routine, closed the drawer, and walked the floor like nothing was wrong. Smiles all around. Everyone thought I was just the guy who kept belts straight. They didn't know I also kept the keys. Monday opened like any other. A box of stale donuts, lukewarm coffee, and a dozen emails stuffed with corporate nonsense. Historic win, team excellence, breakthrough performance. All from the same people who told me, flat out, not to overcomplicate the rebuild. At 10:14, the official write-up landed. Marketing had gone all out. Charts, color blocks, timeline graphics. All mine. The formatting, the color coding, the notes on cycle intervals, they were ripped straight from my draft folder, authored by the VP of Ops, some guy from product strategy in Cincinnati, and, of course, Trent. My name? Tucked in the footnotes as cross-functional support. Like I brought coffee instead of rebuilding their entire plant from the bones up. I didn't flip a table. I didn't call anyone. I opened a new folder on my desktop and named it Jack. No one here would know what that meant. Jack was my uncle, the one who taught me to keep a jack in the truck instead of waiting on road service. Quiet tools beat loud talks. Always. I started pulling files, maintenance logs, completed work orders, vendor installation confirmations with digital time stamps. I pulled the email chains where I negotiated the spec upgrades while Trent was 2 hours late on a golf course. Every file had my initials, my hands, my steps. I dug up the work chat from that week Trent asked, dead serious. "Does a chain conveyor use an actual chain?" I'd stared at the screen for a full minute before just replying, "Yes, it does." I screenshotted it, just in case he tried to act like a subject matter expert again. Then I copied photos I'd taken during install week, my handwritten notes taped inside the main panel for the electricians. Stuff no one else would have written. I still had sandbox logins on 2 training stations we use for onboarding, both labeled as test. I didn't touch anything, just made sure I still had access. At lunch, I sat at my desk with my thermos, flipping through the contract again. Appendix C, slow this time, word by word. Compensated employment status, it said, meant base pay plus milestone bonus once accepted. My name was there in full. Curtis Avery, designated plant liaison. 96 hours. I picked that number on purpose. I'd seen too many Friday payroll adjustments hit too late. 4 days was enough rope to hang a bluff. After I finished eating, I sent one email. Subject, FYI, potential compliance risks, 4 lines, no heat. Just a reference to the clause, a note on my current unpaid status, and the contract attached. It went to Maureen in legal, no CCs, no drama. I hit send, closed Outlook, and got back to my walkthrough. Belt tension, fluid levels, vibration checks. Same as always. Folks kept stopping me for throughput numbers. I gave them what they needed, no edge in my voice. Just clean answers. It wasn't their fault. I never mess up the line. That work pays people's mortgages. At 3:40, I saved an encrypted version of the contract onto a thumb drive and walked it out to my truck. Glove box, back corner. Not paranoia, experience. Paper has a way of disappearing when people get nervous. By 6:10, I clocked out with the rest of them. Nothing in my hands but the same clipboard and pen I always carried. The blade was sharp now, not swinging, just ready. I slid the drawer shut on the spreadsheet and stood up like nothing was off. The hum of the line still rolled through the floor, steady and sure. The men checking belts and torque weren't looking over their shoulders yet. I kept it that way. By 7:28 Tuesday morning, my invite to the production huddle vanished, just gone. 1 second there, next it looked like I was never on the list. By 9 sharp, I was kicked off the line 3 email thread. No subject change, no thanks for your help. Just cut clean, I've seen it before. It's the move management makes when they want to freeze you out, but don't have the nerve or grounds to fire you. Happens to guys who know too much or cost too much, sometimes both. I didn't waste time asking questions. I opened Excel and created a blank workbook. Title, Critical Reliance, Line 3 Controls, version 2.4. First column, I wrote out every function tied to the vendor's controller. If filler speed algorithms, capper torque settings, rinse cycle timing, Q, A stamp authorization, temperature variances, and the live scrap counter linked to the CFO's dashboard. Second column, I tagged who used each item. Operations, QA, finance, inventory, maintenance, even the sales guy who promised 2-day turnarounds on new orders. Third column, I wrote what broke if the license dropped, not hypotheticals. Real-world deadlines. Sanitation hits failure in under 12 hours. QA stamps break at 18. Shift reports stop flowing at 24. Replenishment slips at 36. By 48 hours, customer fill rates start to fail. By lunch, I had 37 items. Nothing padded, nothing theoretical. No one asked what I was working on, and I didn't offer. Back at my desk, I ate while reviewing the contract clause again, just to keep it fresh. The software doesn't care about feelings. If I'm unpaid and the clock runs past 96 hours, the license goes dark. No appeals, no warning screen. Maureen's reply came in at 4:20. Simple line. Received, reviewing Appendix C. Thank you for flagging. No CCs, no bold. But she didn't loop anyone in. That was the tell. Quiet meant she was serious. At 4:30, Trent walked past my station without saying a word. Loud shoes, stiff shoulders. He always walked like that. Like sound would cover up whatever he didn't know. I watched him go, then turned back to my list. I added more. Auto-sleeving delay sensors, bottle count verification logs, inline rejection rates for underfilled units, the barcode tracking for shift yields. By quitting time, the list hit 61. Not made up. Not technical fluff. Just the bones of the operation they leaned on and assumed would always work. I brought the spreadsheet home, sat at my kitchen table past midnight, coffee gone cold, and kept going. By the time I saved and closed the file, there were 88 items. I wasn't gloating, wasn't gritting my teeth. It was just numbers, paper, truth that doesn't blink. Wednesday would be the halfway mark on the clock. Before I shut down, I printed the spreadsheet and slid it into a plain folder in my bottom drawer. If they wanted to ghost me, fine. But I keep records. If they turned this cold, I'd turn clinical. By morning, even the janitor avoided eye contact, like I'd caught something that could spread. No meeting invites, no pings. I ran my first inspection loop in total silence. Guys on the line nodded at me but didn't say much. I didn't blame them. They knew when the air got weird. At 10 past 10, I saw Maureen walking the floor, heels fast but not rushed. One by one, she pulled people into Conference B, Trent first, then HR lead Darlene, a junior guy from finance, and one of the directors from ops. Doors shut, blinds dropped. I didn't need an invite to know what was on the table. She had the contract open, the original with wet signatures and postmarks. I'd watched her pull it from records myself last year and stick a red tab on Appendix C. That tab had teeth. I imagined the room quiet at first. Maureen would have started slow, her voice flat and exact. Is the designated plant liaison currently in compensated employment status? HR answered the way HR always does when they don't want to own anything. He's active, not terminated. Maureen didn't flinch. That's not my question. Has he been paid what's due under his agreement for the rollout? Finance probably looked up, already halfway to regret. The rollout bonus is still under review. Trent, I'm sure, tried to fill the gap. He always talked more when the walls got tight, probably threw out words like timing issue, policy confusion. We were waiting on clarification. I bet Maureen held up one finger, not to stop him, just to let him ramble until the rope looped. She would have laid the paper down in front of them. Appendix C, Paragraph 4, B. License remains valid only while the named liaison is in compensated employment status. The grace period is 96 hours. Finance had the system timestamp. Bonus was marked as due on Sunday morning at 2:59 a.m. That meant the clock had already chewed through 78 hours by the time they sat in that room. I pictured the stillness that hit next, that first sharp inhale when a room realizes it's not a debate anymore, it's a deadline. That silence is louder than yelling. It's the kind that sticks in your shoes when you walk out. Then Maureen, calm as ever, would have stood. We are on a clock. If he remains unpaid past the grace period, we are operating without a valid license. That affects production records, safety logs, customer certifications, and investor materials. She never bluffed. That's why I trusted her. Someone might have tried a half-baked solution. Maybe HR said they'd work on issuing a manual payment or circle back by Friday. Maureen would have nodded, then shut it down. Fix it today or prepare for formal notice. Back at my station, I didn't check the time. I knew it was moving faster now, faster than their excuses could catch up. The floor buzzed under my boots like always, but I didn't feel part of it, not anymore. I logged the last maintenance note, saved the file, and powered down my terminal like it was any other day. But it wasn't. Thursday started the way I figured it might. At 3:11 a.m., the CFO's fill rate auto report didn't hit. No bounce back, no delay tag. Just didn't come. That system had never missed in 5 years. By 3:30, the graveyard shift lead messaged IT, then called maintenance. Scrap counter froze, he said. QA stamps aren't logging either. He tried not to sound nervous, didn't quite manage it. At 4:05, the control screens glitched, then slapped up a red banner that made my stomach drop. License unrecognized, contact account liaison. I'd only seen that warning once, during onboarding. I hoped I'd never see it again. But there it was, and it was real. Sanitation crews stood idle. Their timed cycles were linked to vendor clocks. No clock, no cycle. Production could still move bottles, sure, but nothing would log. No yield data, no stamp trails, no compliance certs. Anything bottled had to be shelved under quarantine, no questions. By 6:20, the day shift lined up at their usual posts, staring at blank dashboards. A couple tried rebooting touchscreens out of instinct. One banged a console, thinking it was just a frozen panel. By 7:10, Trent's office door had a small crowd outside. Ops, QA, planning. Everyone whispering, pacing, holding tablets they couldn't sync. They talked low like folks outside a hospital room. I didn't join them. I sat in the far corner of the break room with black coffee in my chipped white mug that said, "Keep it level." Got it from a vendor rep. After a night I pulled 14 hours resetting torque settings. I sipped slow and didn't say a word. It wasn't joy I felt. It was calm, Not the easy kind, heavy, settled. The kind that shows up when something breaks exactly how you warned it would. At 8 on the dot, Maureen walked past the break room glass, fast and focused. No clipboard, no laptop. Just a red folder under her arm and heels that didn't slow. She didn't look at me. She didn't need to. I watched her turn the corner toward the executive offices. CEO parked out front every Tuesday and Thursday before most folks even got coffee. He was in the building. That much I knew. At 8:22, the internal alert hit manager inboxes. Subject line: immediate. No meeting title, no agenda. Just that word. I wasn't on the list. Didn't need to be. My name was already in the room, bolded in the middle of Appendix C. Word floated back through the hallway cracks. Trent called it a glitch. Blamed the vendor. Said their back end might have pushed a bad update. Maureen waited, then dropped the clause on the table like a brick. "It's not a glitch," she said. "It's a breach." The CEO asked one question, the only one that mattered. "Is this real?" The answer was yes. No tech fix, no soft override, real and enforceable. And the worst part, they'd been warned. By noon, the building had that hollow silence you only hear after something breaks big and no one wants to say it out loud. Phones still rang, machines still sat, but everyone moved like they were waiting on instructions that wouldn't come. They sent Tyler from HR to talk to me. Kid had sweat rings and a printout in his shaking hand. He cleared his throat like it owed him something and said, "Would you be willing to draft a quick transition guide? Just high level, nothing detailed." I stared at him for half a second. Transition for a platform we can't legally access? His mouth opened, then closed. He blinked, nodded, like both yes and no hurt the same, and backed away without another word. At 12:32, payroll tried a last-ditch play. Backdated manual adjustment on my bonus, time-stamped just before noon. I saw the notice come through my inbox like a late apology. Too late. The clause had shut the door hours earlier. 10 minutes after that, Maureen dropped a line in all staff leadership email, cold and clean, like a blade across the desk. Retroactive payment does not cure breach under Appendix C, Paragraph 4, B. License remains invalid. Disclosure proceeding. No wiggle room, no hope for a redo, just the terms they signed off on. Trent kept pacing the hallway with a manila folder he wouldn't open. He kept glancing at the CEO's office like he might get called in and rescued. Finance was frozen at their desks, blinking at spreadsheets with no numbers pulling in. Marketing huddled by the vending machine, whispering like kids after a car crash. I went down to the training room and logged into 2 terminals I'd set up last year for onboarding. Both still had sandbox accounts under my initials. I deleted them clean. Not to be petty, just don't leave my name on equipment I no longer control. An hour later, the vendor sent an email that didn't waste a single word. Your license is invalid due to breach. Reinstatement requests must originate from the named liaison. Contact your designated liaison. That was me, still me. My phone stayed quiet. I stepped outside. Sunlight on cold metal. Gloves in my back pocket, same place I always keep them. I walked the gravel edge of the loading dock and watched a bird pull a fry from the trash like nothing was wrong. Let them run in circles. I'd already done the part that mattered. Back at my desk, I zipped the critical reliance spreadsheet into an encrypted file and sent it to my personal email. Just one more copy. Not to launch anything, just insurance. I don't believe in trusting just one hard drive, especially not here. As I passed the line on my way to the floor, a few workers nodded at me. Not smiles, just a kind of mutual recognition. Guys who've seen things go sideways and know exactly who's holding the line. I nodded back. My fight wasn't with them. At 1:55, I saw the door close on Conference A. No projector, no laptops, blinds yanked down tight. When people meet like that, it means they don't want a record. I wasn't on the list, didn't expect to be. The room was for folks looking to clean up after themselves without asking where the mess started. I headed toward the break room to refill my coffee and caught pieces of conversation leaking from behind the glass. Compliance exposure, customer notice, investors. That last one always gets the blood pressure up. Maureen had come armed. Someone from the floor told me later she dropped a black binder on the table and clicked her pen before anyone said a word. Then she read my clause out loud. Not summarized, read. I could hear it in my head. Appendix C, Paragraph 4, B. Some genius tried to play dumb. Wait, is there any kind of grace period? Maureen didn't even blink. 96 hours. That ended at 2:59 this morning. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. QA chimed in, real quiet but clear enough to kill the mood. Customer certification expires 24 hours after the last validated stamp. After that, everything becomes hold inventory. That's when the CFO stopped rubbing his temples. The VP of OPS quit pretending to scroll through his phone. Even Trent, who never reads anything all the way through, started sweating enough to fog his glasses. He tried the usual act, made a joke, blamed communication gaps, said it wasn't clear who was responsible for final approvals. None of it landed. The CEO leaned forward. "We need a fix. Is there one?" Maureen didn't answer right away. She waited, let the room feel how far out they had drifted. Then she said it plain. "There was. You decided his bonus wasn't worth the exception." Nobody argued because she had paper. Paper doesn't care about excuses. It cares about signatures. And Trent had signed the delay. She told them the only path forward, full compensation, including the penalty spelled out in the clause, paid in verified funds. Then request reinstatement through the named liaison, me. Someone asked if legal could go around me. She said, "Not under the terms you agreed to. The vendor contract is specific and binding. The liaison must initiate reinstatement." I heard none of this directly, but I knew how Maureen worked. Every line she said would have landed like a bolt through drywall. Out on the floor, I watched a guy from QA just standing by a pallet of finished goods. Couldn't ship without stamps. Couldn't print stamps without the controller. Couldn't use the controller without me. You could feel the pause turning into cost. I didn't pace. I didn't hover. I went back to my desk and ate a late sandwich. Turkey, 1 slice of cheese, mustard. I jotted notes for a side job I'd lined up, tuning a cider press for a family outfit down county. Not urgent. Just something that reminded me I had other ways to earn. At 3:40, I walked past the conference hall again and saw 2 supervisors in the corner office arguing through their teeth. Their hands moved sharp. One pointed at a sheet. The other kept shaking his head. I didn't slow down. Not my problem anymore, unless they came correct. I was outside feeding the neighbor's hound when my phone buzzed in my back pocket. I glanced at the screen. No mask, direct line. That kind of call doesn't come through a secretary. I answered with one word. "Curtis." There was a pause, just long enough to hear the breath before it hit. Then the CEO spoke. "What will it take?" No greeting, no lead-in, just the question that always shows up when bluffing stops working. I wiped my hands on my jeans, walked inside, and sat down at my kitchen table. The hound watched me through the screen door, tail wagging like this was just another Thursday. I opened a file folder labeled in bold, reinstatement and buyout, executed upon breach. My attorney, Felicia, and I had put it together 2 weeks earlier, back when Trent first said the word Titan in a tone I didn't like. I didn't speak. I just attached the PDF and typed a subject line. Your offer window, 24 hours. The email had 3 bullets on the first page. 1. Wire my unpaid compensation of $21,500 plus a 45% penalty for breach. 2. Buy out Appendix C for $420,000 through outside counsel. 3. Deliver a written acknowledgement of my leadership role at the next all hands. I hit send while he stayed on the line. 10 seconds of dead air. You can feel the shift when numbers land. It's not noise. It's silence. The kind men get when they see what they really owe. Then, soft, like someone reading a toll sign after the bridge, he said, "We should have just paid you the bonus." I didn't rub it in. "You have until close of business tomorrow. After that, Maureen files, the vendor escalates, and I stop answering unknown numbers." He was quiet again, then gave the same weak line they all give when the corner's too tight. "We will follow up." I told him, "I'll be home, watering the tomatoes." Then I hung up. I sent Felicia a text. Sent. She replied with a thumbs up and 3 words. Clock has started. Out the window, my backyard looked like it always did. Jose curled by the fence post, tomato cages leaning left from last week's wind, the dog still watching me like I had another biscuit hidden somewhere. Inside, I made coffee and sat still. The dashboards at the plant stayed dark that night. I knew because two line guys texted asking if I'd heard anything. I didn't answer. I'd done my part. I wasn't their fix anymore. Somewhere in a PowerPoint deck, I bet the fill rate chart was stuck on TBD, probably highlighted in red with a note that said pending data recovery. I smiled once, then let it drop. At 10 o'clock, I switched off the porch light and turned my phone to silent. I slept clean, not smug, not bitter. Just the kind of sleep that shows up when you do something hard and don't back down halfway through. Friday morning, 8:12 a.m., my bank app pinged with the kind of tone that hits different when you've earned every cent. First wire, $21,500 in unpaid comp. Second line, $9,675 in breach penalties. A third message came a minute later from Felicia's office confirming the clause buyout escrow had cleared. I didn't grin. I nodded once, locked my phone, and poured a fresh cup of coffee. At 9:05, the building-wide email hit. No bold fonts, no banners, just plain black letters. The CEO wrote, "Thanks to Curtis Avery for leading the Line 3 overhaul effort." Nothing dramatic, but this time he said my name where everyone could see it. 10 o'clock sharp, the all hands came through the intercom. I stayed at my station, sipping slow. The CEO mentioned leadership changes, said Trent was departing the company. Most folks stayed polite, but a few glanced sideways at me. I kept my face neutral. Let them guess. At 10:30, Maureen showed up at my desk holding a short letter on official letterhead. "Confirmation of full terms," she said. "And your choice, resignation or consulting." Her tone was professional, firm. No smirks, no small talk. I took the envelope and thanked her. 10:47. Vendor systems blinked. Red banners vanished, replaced by gray, then green. Live data flowed back into the dashboards like someone had hit a switch. The screens came back online because I'd okayed it. Vendor required it in writing from the name liaison, and that was still me. By 11, you could hear it. Bottles rattling down the line again, slower than usual while QA cleared the pileup. But it was movement. Sounded like rain after a long, cracked drought. At 12:15, my phone rang again. The CEO, calmer this time. "We'd like you to stay on for a 6-week retainer, consulting role, full discretion." I didn't let him finish the pitch. "I'll do 3 weeks, my hours, my terms, and every SOP and spec I wrote stays under my name." He didn't argue. Done. At 2 p.m., HR slid me a plain resignation form, dated that morning. No trap door, no non-compete, no lawyer tricks buried in paragraph 5, just clean paper and a neutral reference letter signed by legal and ops. I stood, packed my clipboard and thermos, and shook hands with every line lead I passed. Guys who'd worked under steam and pressure, same as me. I told them what I always tell men who show up on time and keep their tools sharp. Keep your gloves handy, keep your screws in labeled bags. That's how things run straight. As I walked out, I passed the break room. No champagne this time, no balloons, just silence and steam from the coffee pot, and the sound of people finally exhaling. Out in the lot, I climbed into my truck, pulled the thumb drive from the glove box, and slipped it into my shirt pocket. Felt like weight coming off. That wasn't revenge. That was the job getting done right. A week later, I stood in a small cinder block shop I'd rented off Route 49, just past the grain silos. The overhead door was open. Spring air drifted in, carrying sawdust, warm oil, and the sound of gravel popping under tires. I'd scraped the budget to hang a sign on the glass, Curtis Avery, plant readiness and turnaround. No logo, no slogan, just my name and what I did. The first call came from a craft soda company 3 counties over. They said they'd heard I could get a line running honest. I told them I could, but I don't come cheap. They said, "We're not asking for cheap, we're asking for right." I took the job, 3 days, fair rate. I asked for half up front and the rest on completion. They said sure without blinking. That's the kind of answer I can work with. Back in Dayton, the bottling plant settled. Word was they followed my procedures to the letter once they realized the shortcuts weren't saving them anything. Line ran smooth when they didn't fight the playbook. QA cleared their backlog. Production hit targets again. Maureen stayed in her chair. She was one of the few in that place who never treated me like a spare part. She'd earned her seat, and I was glad to hear she kept it. Trent landed somewhere in sales, from what I heard, pushing parts or promises with a shorter leash on him this time. I didn't look him up. I didn't care. Men like him always find somewhere new to talk loud until someone finally tells them no. Some nights, I'd sit out back with a folding chair and think about the moment those screens flashed red. Not to gloat, just to remind myself I wasn't crazy. Paper matters. Terms matter. So does keeping your own word, even if no one else does. I didn't torch the place. I didn't flip desks or shout in meetings. I just stopped protecting people who forgot I was the one holding the wall up. They paid what they owed, plus tuition for the lesson. And I kept my name. That was the real win. When the tomatoes ripened, I filled a brown bag and walked them over to the neighbor with the hound. We sat on his porch. He poured sweet tea, and we didn't say much. After a while, he asked, "So, how's things?" I said, "Better." That was all that needed saying. There's a kind of quiet you only get after the fight's over, after the noise, when the phone stops ringing and the work you're doing finally feels clean. That's where I live now. If a plant wants steady, they can call. If they want it fast and cheap, they can call someone else. I'll be here, lights on, tools sharp, coffee hot, waiting on the ones who understand what a man's name is really worth. Before you close this, can I ask you something honest? When your work gets dismissed, do you walk or force them to respect your name? And what would that look like in your life? If you've got hype, tap it to boost this and help it reach more people. Please subscribe and hit like. It's important to us, and just one click. Then leave a comment, even good story, or tell me what you'd do.